Sarah had never imagined returning to her grandmother's manor, a place she had visited only once as a child. The sprawling estate loomed in the distance, shrouded in mist and memories she had long since buried. Her grandmother, a woman she barely knew, had left her a fortune under one condition: she must live in the manor for a month. With her young daughter Lily in tow, Sarah had little choice but to accept. Struggling to make ends meet, this inheritance was a lifeline she couldn't ignore. As they approached the manor, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. The house itself was a relic of another era, its stone facade weathered and imposing. Ivy crept up the walls, and the windows were dark, like eyes watching their every move. Sarah shivered, pulling her coat tighter around her. "It's just a house," she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the unease that settled in her bones. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of dusty corridors and forgotten rooms. The air was thick with the scent of decay and something else she couldn't quite place. Lily, ever curious, darted from room to room, her laughter echoing through the halls. Sarah watched her daughter, a pang of guilt twisting in her stomach. She had promised Lily a better life, and this was the best she could offer. Days turned into nights, and the manor's secrets began to unravel. Sarah stumbled upon a hidden door behind a tapestry, its hinges rusted but yielding to her touch. The room beyond was a macabre museum of horrors. Preserved human remains were displayed like trophies, their lifeless eyes staring accusingly. Sarah's heart raced, and bile rose in her throat. "What the hell is this place?" she whispered, backing away in terror. Her grandmother's journals, stacked neatly on a table, beckoned her with their sinister allure. As she read, a chilling narrative unfolded. Her grandmother had been part of a secret society obsessed with immortality, believing that consuming human flesh could grant eternal youth. The journals detailed gruesome experiments, each more horrifying than the last. Sarah's hands trembled as she turned the pages, the words searing into her mind. The days grew darker, and Sarah's unease turned to dread. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that the manor itself was alive and hungry. Her dreams were plagued by visions of her grandmother, her eyes hollow and her mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. Sarah awoke each morning drenched in sweat, the taste of blood on her tongue. As the month wore on, Sarah's hunger became insatiable. No matter how much she ate, a gnawing emptiness clawed at her insides. She caught herself staring at Lily, her mind conjuring images too horrifying to comprehend. "No," she told herself, shaking her head violently. "I won't let this place change me." But the manor had other plans. It whispered to her in the dead of night, its voice seductive and cruel. "You are your grandmother's heir," it taunted. "Embrace your legacy." Sarah fought against the darkness, but it seeped into her soul, relentless and unforgiving. Her thoughts turned to her grandmother, a woman driven by desperation and madness. What horrors had she endured to become the monster she was? The journals hinted at a tragic past, a life marked by betrayal and loss. Her grandmother had been a brilliant scientist, her mind twisted by the promise of power and immortality. The villagers had shunned her, branding her a witch and driving her into isolation. In her solitude, she had turned to the forbidden, seeking solace in the flesh of the living. Her experiments had been both brilliant and barbaric, a testament to her genius and her madness. Sarah's heart ached for the woman her grandmother had once been, but the horrors she had wrought were unforgivable. The manor was a testament to her cruelty, a monument to her insatiable hunger. As the final days of her stay approached, Sarah's resolve began to crumble. The hunger was a living thing, writhing inside her, demanding to be fed. She found herself drawn to the hidden room, the preserved remains calling to her like sirens. "Just a taste," the voice in her head whispered. "Just one bite." Sarah's mind was a battleground, her love for Lily warring with the darkness that threatened to consume her. She couldn't let the manor win, couldn't let her grandmother's legacy destroy them both. But the hunger was relentless, and Sarah's strength was waning. One night, as the wind howled outside and the manor groaned in the storm, Sarah made her decision. She gathered Lily in her arms, her heart breaking with each step. "We're leaving," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "We have to go." But the manor had other plans. As they reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening finality. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with malice. "You can't leave," the manor taunted, its voice echoing in her mind. "You belong to me." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she frantically searched for an escape. Her fingers clawed at the windows, nails breaking and bleeding as she tried to pry them open. The doors wouldn't budge, no matter how hard she slammed her body against them. Panic rose in her throat like bile as she realized they were trapped. The manor seemed to laugh at her efforts, its walls closing in, suffocating her. In desperation, Sarah turned back to her grandmother's journals. The musty pages stuck together, smeared with what looked like dried blood. As she flipped through them, her stomach churned at the gruesome sketches of mutilated bodies and half-eaten corpses. The stench of decay seemed to rise from the pages themselves. Finally, a passage caught her eye, the words pulsing with an eerie glow. It described a ritual, a way to break the curse, but the cost was unthinkable. Sarah's mind reeled as she read the details. The ritual required a blood sacrifice, a life offered willingly to appease the manor's hunger. Her eyes darted to Lily, playing innocently in the corner, unaware of the horrors surrounding them. For a moment, a dark thought crossed Sarah's mind, and she hated herself for it. She could feel the manor's influence, whispering terrible suggestions, urging her to give in to its demands. Just then, Lily's laughter rang out, pure and bright in the gloom. It cut through the darkness like a knife, reminding Sarah of everything she stood to lose. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and saw the future she had promised to protect. In that moment, Sarah's resolve hardened. She knew what she had to do. With shaking hands, Sarah gathered the items needed for the ritual. A silver knife, its blade wickedly sharp. Candles made from human fat, their scent sickly sweet. A bowl carved from bone stained with the remnants of past sacrifices. As she arranged them, she could feel the manor watching, its hunger a palpable force in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she began the ritual. The words felt heavy on her tongue, each syllable dripping with dark power. As she chanted, the air grew thick and oppressive. The walls seemed to pulse with an unholy light, and whispers echoed from every corner. Sarah's skin crawled as unseen fingers brushed against her, urging her to complete the sacrifice. With a deep breath, Sarah raised the knife. Its blade glinted in the candlelight as she pressed it against her own flesh. Pain seared through her as she dragged it across her palm, blood welling up and spilling into the bone bowl. The manor's excitement was palpable, a hungry beast waiting to be fed. As the final words left Sarah's lips, the world exploded into chaos. The walls shook violently, plaster raining down. A deafening shriek filled the air, as if the manor itself was screaming in rage. Sarah felt a tremendous force slam into her, knocking her to the ground. Blood poured from her nose and ears as the pressure built, threatening to crush her. Then suddenly, it was over. The silence was deafening after the chaos. Sarah lay on the floor, gasping for breath, her body aching. She could feel the change in the air, the oppressive presence of the manor gone. They were free, but the cost had been high. As dawn broke, Sarah cradled Lily in her arms, both of them shaking. The manor stood silent, its evil seemingly vanquished. But as they walked away, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them. A shadow at the edge of her vision, a whisper just beyond hearing. The darkness had tasted her now, and it wouldn't let go easily. Sarah knew that the scars of this night, both physical and mental, would haunt her for the rest of her days. The price of freedom was steep indeed, and she wondered if she would ever truly escape the legacy of her grandmother's madness.